What's good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanji back at it with another video. I'm fired up, man. I'm super fired up. Let's talk about it. Raiders beat the Denver Broncos, and it wasn't this was not a typical beatdown. It was it was a beatdown, right? Like it was not a typical game. The Raiders really did a great job. We're gonna discuss it. We're gonna break it down, and we're really gonna talk about it, man. I'm super fired up, and I hope you guys are fired up just as much as I'm fired up. Because the thing is this was the first time, in my personal opinion, that the Raiders all came together. Offense, defense, special teams, offensive line, running back, D line, safeties, everybody came together and we won this game. And the thing is I know people will say we only scored 17 points. We barely beat the Denver Broncos. But here's the thing. Not only did we barely beat the Denver Broncos, but we had 3 turnovers. Think about it, if we had no turnovers and we forced 1 or 2 turnovers, we would have scored 35 points in this game. The Raiders whooped the Denver Broncos, and we're going to get into it, and we're going to discuss it. Let's get into some of these comments, man. I already see a ton of great comments. Huge shout out to all you guys that are already here. Huge shout out to KG for the super sticker. Big shout out to you guys. If you guys want to support the channel and you guys want to be featured on this channel, and you guys want to be a part of this show, make sure to leave a super chat, man. Super chats will always be on the show, and we will always talk whatever it is you guys want to talk, man. This is pretty much your guys' show. Let's get into it first and foremost with just kind of talking about the game in general. You know, one of the things that happened early on, I posted this on Twitter. I said the Raiders have this game locked in. At that point, the score, I believe, was 7-3. About 2 minutes left going in the first half. And I said that one of the things I've seen in the first half is the fact that the Raiders are the better football team. The Raiders are getting it done right now. And a Josh Jacobs fumble, a Derek Carr interception, and we're down 13-7 going into halftime. And I was shook, man. I was very shook. I was thinking to myself at that exact point that I don't know what the Raiders are doing right now. The Raiders aren't getting it done. And here's the crazy part, right? If you guys think about this for a second, if the Raiders can play the way they played against the Denver Broncos and they play like this against whatever team it is going forward, they're going to be very hard to beat. This team right here is a good football team, and we're without Darren Waller, potentially our best offensive player. Could you imagine if we had Waller this game, how much better we would be? You know, in my personal opinion, when I watched this game, when I watched it live, when I kind of break it down and discuss it, I would say this. The Raiders in this game right here did a great job running the football in the second half. The offensive line did a fantastic job opening up holes. And we saw the Josh Jacobs from his rookie season. 26 carries, 124 yards from Josh Jacobs. He had 1 carry that went for 20 yards, I believe, and he had another carry that went for 13, 14 yards. And those were his long carries, but he still had a ton of 5, 6, 7, 8-yard carries. In fact, I believe Josh Jacobs had 9 carries for about 22 yards in the first half. So he basically put up 120 yards in the second half. And it was behind that offensive line. Interestingly, Brandon Parker continues to struggle, but we were able to overcome that. I believe on the first half of the game, John Simpson had a hold, and we were able to overcome that. Derek Carr, terrible fumble, right? I believe we were driving, and he fumbled. I believe we were getting close to scoring potentially a field goal, and he fumbles. The interception right for the halftime, I don't necessarily blame Derek Carr 100%. I think Briley Chubb made a great play on the ball. Josh Jacobs fumble, terrible job not holding on to the ball. He kind of holds the ball a little loosely, in my opinion. But overall, man, very nice win. But let's be honest. As good as Josh Jacobs and the offensive line played, you have to give it up to the defense. Desmond Trufant had 7 tackles today. He had 2 huge pass breakups. Darius Philon came in. I had a couple of quarterback hurries. Max Crosby, first sack in 7 weeks. Multiple pressures, hits on the quarterback. Casey Hayward did a pretty good job today. Quentin Jefferson had a huge sack in the fourth quarter. But more than that, the Raiders offense closed the game out. How many times have the defense put us in position, 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left, and all the offense has to do is just close the game out, and the offense isn't able to do it, and then the defense isn't able to then stop the opposing offense, and now we're down. All right, those kind of things happen all the time for the Raiders, and in my opinion, this was the first game that the team came together. here's the thing, right? As terrible as we were after starting 5-2, right? From 5-2, we are now 8-7. We won what, 3 of our last 5 or last 8 games. So 3-5 in the last 8 games. The Raiders are in the playoff hunt. We're going to be making a playoff push, and we could potentially have just sparked something for the Raiders with this win. The O-line, the running back, the defense, the coach did a good job, man. Although I disagree with some people who are saying the Raiders should have potentially not, just taken the knee or whatever going into halftime. Totally disagree with that. I think the Raiders did a great job. I'm excited, man. I'm definitely excited. We got some super chats, so let's get into this. And I see a lot of your guys' comments. I'm actually digging some of these comments, so we'll get into some of those as well. Someone said that game balls to all but Carr, 2 turnovers. Although I agree that Derek Carr did have 2 terrible turnovers, he also made some good plays that, me as a person who does not like Derek Carr as our long-term quarterback, as someone that thinks that way, I would also say that Derek Carr did a great job today. I know those 2 turnovers were killer, but you got to look at some of the plays. We're able to run the football, and then there were moments in the game that he was able to play action and hit Hunter Renfrow for 15 yards. Even the last play of the game for the Raiders, right before the knees, it was a play action, and Derek Carr threw it over the top to Foster Moreau. So you got to give a shout out to Derek as well. He got it done when it mattered. But more so than that, we're able to kill the clock at the end of the game. And I think that's pivotal. You have to be able to kill the clock and win football games. And the Raiders were able to do it. Now, James said, why are the Ravens in the 7th spot over the Raiders tiebreaker? So I have the playoff picture updated. So right now, it based off of how it goes, the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, have the number 7 spot. The Chargers have the 8th spot, and the Raiders have the 9th spot. The Ravens have I'm not 100% sure why the Ravens are in the 7th spot. I believe it goes with, before it goes to head-to-head in the conference, I believe there's something else that they would look at. Maybe it's common opponents. I'll have to check that out and get back to you on that. But, either way, it's not a huge deal, right? Because if the Raiders can win out, things shift, right? For the Raiders, we could potentially have that 7th spot and get into the playoffs. Even then, like, we played the Colts. If we beat the Colts, we can potentially get in over the Colts, right? So the 5th, 6th, 7th seed, it's all right there for the taking, man. The Raiders have to win out, though. A huge shout out to you, James. I really appreciate the fact that you left a super chat. As you guys know, I haven't been posting a ton of videos this past week. I've had a lot happen. I've had some things kind of happen with this channel. I don't really want to get into it, but there's some issues with basically me being able to monetize the channel. Although I think I'll be able to monetize it, I don't really know exactly how this channel will go going forward because the super chats is where I primarily make any revenue from this. So, like, anytime I post, the day-to-day videos, the film studies, I generally am not making anything from those videos. So it gets really hard, and, kind of had a thing back and forth happen. But I appreciate the super chat, man. I really do. It really does support the channel. So shout out to you, James. Alexander said, thought the defense in general was great with stacking the line and the secondary with minimal mistakes without Abrams too. And that's the biggest thing, right? Like, Jonathan Abrams, the leader in the locker room. I reached out to a bunch of defensive players that are on the team currently, some guys that were on the team over the past 2 seasons, and kind of asked about what the impact with Jonathan Abrams no longer being here could have for the Raiders. And some of those guys for sure were like, Jonathan Abrams, a true leader. His play on the football field not only speaks for itself, but the way he fires guys up is something that people might not see, especially if you kind of just watch the game and you're not like actually on the sideline and you're hearing some of the things that are being said. Jonathan Abrams, the Raiders leader, man. I know some people say it's Derek Carr. Some people say it could be like Denzel Perryman. Some people say it's Max Crosby. From what I hear and have heard, Jonathan Abram is one of the leaders in that locker room. So again, I totally agree with you, Alexander. The offensive or the defensive line, in my opinion, really got this win for the Raiders. And it wasn't the pass rush. Although the pass rush was pretty good, it wasn't the pass rush. The run defense was freaking phenomenal, man. If you guys just look at some of the statistics, the Denver Broncos had 16 carries for 18 yards. Melvin Gordon had negative 4 yards, which is crazy. How do you average? He averages negative 0.6 yards per attempt. That's nuts, man. It was really the defense that was getting all these tackles for losses. Jonathan Hankins was out today too, and he's our best run defender. But guys like Quentin Jefferson and Darius Philon made a couple of really nice plays. Guys like Max Crosby and even Cleveland Farrell was getting in on some of the action. That right there, in my opinion, was the difference in the game, man. I'm very excited to really see what the Raiders can continue to do on the defense side of the ball. Drew Lock is Drew Lock, right? Like, let's just be honest, he's not that good of a quarterback. You can definitely win with Drew Lock, but it really takes a lot for you to be able to win with a guy like Lock, right? Your run game has to be top tier. Your offensive line has to be top tier. Your receivers, I would argue Denver has a great offensive receivers, playmakers in Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Noah Fant. I like Tim Patrick as well. Even Javonte Williams is one of the best young backs in the league. Melvin Gordon. You have some guys, right? But the offense line wasn't able to open up the holes, and I think ultimately that's kind of what's hindered the Raiders. And today I feel like that hindered the Denver Broncos. But yeah, man, I'm very excited to see what this defense can do. The secondary stepped up. One of the interesting things to note, and tell me what you guys think about this right now in the comments below. Nate Hobbs was healthy, but Nate Hobbs only played special teams today. Keyshawn Nixon ended up starting and playing in that slot position. Why do you guys think Keyshawn Nixon played over Nate Hobbs? And that'll be an interesting topic. I don't know if Rich Bisaccia will be asked by the media guys that are there that ask those questions. I don't know if those guys will ask those questions. If I was there, which I'll be there hopefully next year. If I was there, I would ask, like, what the hell's going on with Nate Hobbs? Nate Hobbs is a Pro Bowl caliber player. I think he's a Pro Bowl reserve, all-pro candidate, or at least second-team all-pro candidate. And Keyshawn Nixon got the start, which is definitely interesting. Now, I could see it being the fact that maybe Nate Hobbs, the game plan coming in maybe was one of the reasons why the Raiders decided that, hey, Nate Hobbs wasn't really healthy. So, it could be something regarding that. But either way, man, I really like what Keyshawn Nixon was able to do. He had two really big plays that I saw. One was towards the end of the game. It was right before they went for it, I think on like 4th and 2. I think it was the final drive. Keyshawn Nixon did a great job chasing Drew Lock backside. I believe he came on a blitz. The blitz didn't get there. Drew Lock tried running. And Keyshawn Nixon chased it down and tackled him. Obviously, they still converted that 4th down. And even a play earlier, a receiver caught the ball, and he made the tackle on the receiver. It was a 3rd down play. They weren't able to get the 1st down, and they punted the football. Those type of things make a difference, right? Keyshawn Nixon did a great job. And I want to know, man, what do you guys think? So let's just see what some of you guys think. Southern Oregon said maybe he isn't 100%, or they game plan was already set. I feel like it was the game plan. I really feel like it had to have been that Gus Bradley came in and say, hey, Keyshawn Nixon, we're going to put you in the slot. We're going to line you up here, and we're going to have you blitz and do these type of things. When you see this offensive lineman do X, Y, and Z, and maybe Nate Hobbs just wasn't ready, right? That's kind of what I would have to believe. But what's interesting is the fact that if Keyshawn Nixon can start over Nate Hobbs and they have the confidence and he comes in and performs well, that's what I want to see, man. That's definitely what I want to see. James also said maybe COVID was rough on Hobbs, and I think that's what it could be. Maybe COVID had an impact on him. Maybe he was having some breathing issues. Ian said he didn't practice enough. I think that's kind of what it was. Either way, man, the Keyshawn Nixon play, that rundown was fantastic. BP said that. Absolutely agreed, man. Absolutely agreed. And let's get into some of these super chats, man. I see a lot of really good comments. And we'll talk a little about Derek Carr a little bit later on. Some people are talking about the injury, the quote unquote fake injury by Derek Carr. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Adrian left $2 super chat, says that means the Browns game wasn't a fluke run defense. Absolutely, man. Look, when KJ Wright plays a ton, and he played, I wouldn't say a ton today, but he played a good amount of snaps. Run defense is going to be better. And it proved once again that the Raiders' run defense was stout. It was solid. It was able to come up and make a ton of stops. If you can't run the football and you're one-dimensional and you have to just throw it on every single down, it's really going to hinder a team. Think about it. The Raiders on the offense side of the ball today only threw the ball 24 times, or at least Derek Carr only threw it 24 times. He probably had a couple more drop backs. He had a couple sacks. He probably ran it once or twice. Actually, ran it 4 times. Derek Carr played very conservative there, right? 19 of 24, 173 yards. In the second half, he attempted, I believe, 8 passes in the second half. That's pretty freaking crazy, man. Derek Carr attempted 8 passes, but it was because of the run game. A very productive run game today. I appreciate the super chat, man. I really, really do. Casey said, great win. Chubb just made a great play for Denver. That's a great point. When that play happened, when Nick Chubb initially intercepted Derek Carr, I blame Derek Carr for not getting the pass over Chubb and just getting it out there a little bit further. But Nick Chubb also made a really solid play, man. To be able to intercept that, he tipped it once and he kind of caught it himself, ran it back to the 1 yard line. And I believe it was Josh Jacobs, a huge heads up play to tackle Chubb before he's able to score. I know they ultimately scored anyways, but it was nice that he was able to make the tackle on the 1 yard line to stop him. Because those type of plays, although it didn't happen today, in the future, those are the types of plays where the Raiders defense will get lucky and will get that stop that'll send us to the Super Bowl, right? Those are the types of plays. So shout out to Josh Jacobs for that play. But I agree, man. Did I say Nick Chubb? Man, Bradley Chubb. Great job on that play. Ty Davis said, what happens if we lose to the Colts but beat the Chargers? If we lose to the Colts but beat the Chargers, it depends what the Chargers do. Do the Chargers win their 2 games? Do the Ravens win their 2 games? The Patriots win their 2 games? So it's going to depend on a lot of these other teams as well, right? Because the other teams have to lose as well. I believe the Chargers lost today. The Steelers got their butts kicked today. Obviously, we beat the Broncos. The Browns, I believe, lost yesterday. So pretty much all of these teams lost today except the Raiders. The Ravens obviously lost as well today. So, yeah, man, it's going to come down to the Raiders could theoretically lose games or lose one of their next 2. But then that means other teams have to lose as well, as opposed to if the Raiders win the next 2. It's not even guaranteed that we're in, to be honest. We still have to kind of get lucky. The playoff seeding kind of has to work out. And I'm going to actually take a look at exactly what the tiebreaker comes down to because I thought the conference tiebreaker was head-to-head, and that's actually not the case. I think it may go based off of your division record first, and maybe the Ravens have a better divisional record because there's something to it in that aspect. Because even though we have a better record than the Ravens are currently in that final 7th spot. Technically, the Chargers beat us, would have that upper hand on us. That's why they're ranked higher. So I would think the Chargers would actually have that spot over them. But either way, I'll look into it and I'll confirm it for you guys. Key Ian says Trufant balled out. Desmond Trufant deserves a game ball, man. 100%. Trufant, Nate Hobbs, absolutely both of those guys deserve game balls. As does guys like Max Crosby. Yannick Ngakoue had a pretty good game, although he might not have had a sack. He definitely had some quarterback hits. And even Darius Philon and Quentin Jefferson, man, those interior guys, Sullivan Thomas, all did a pretty good job. But if I had to give a game ball, and if you tell me I have 6 game balls to give out for this game, Trufant gets a game ball, Nate Hobbs gets a game ball. I think Josh Jacobs gets a game ball. I know he had a fumble that was pretty costly. I think Josh Jacobs still deserves a game ball. Even so, then Josh Jacobs, I would give one to every single one of the offensive linemen. I'd maybe cut Brandon Parker's game ball in half and only give him half a game ball for his pass blocking issues that he continues to have. But our run game was top tier, man, and you have to give it up to the offensive line. It's crazy how much better our team looks, how much better the offense looks with the offensive line playing well. I know the pass blocking, still some issues. Although I will say this, some people on social media are still making huge excuses of the offensive line, or I should say of Derek Carr, saying that the offensive line is the reason why Derek Carr fumbled and the reason why Derek Carr threw an interception and the reason why he was sacked 2 more times. And I totally disagree. Our offensive line played today as a top 12 offensive line unit would play. Right? I'm not saying the number 1 offensive line. I'm saying a top 12 offensive line. And a top 12 offensive line is a Super Bowl offensive line, right? You can win with a top 12 offensive line. And I think this offensive line today showed up. Derek Carr is not going to have a clean pocket 100% of the time. No quarterback does. Every quarterback gets sacked every game. Every quarterback takes hits every single game. It's the NFL. That's just what happens. But for the most part, Derek Carr was kept clean. Right? I believe 3 times, I would say, Brandon Parker lost And then I believe Colt Miller allowed Derek Carr to get sacked once as well, which was because of Brandon Parker losing off the right side. But either way, man, I'm excited, man. I'm very, very, very excited. Pharaoh from the East, I really appreciate the super chat. If we can get to the playoffs after this year, I ain't mad if we win or lose, especially after this drama-filled year. Hardball with Fangio Raiders. If the Raiders could bring in Harbaugh and Harbaugh once again rehires Fangio, because let's be honest, Vic Fangio is going to be fired. There's no way the Denver Broncos are going to give him, I believe, a fourth year after this year. I believe the Denver Broncos fire Fangio, and Fangio goes back and becomes a defensive coordinator. If the Raiders bring in Harbaugh and Fangio, remember, Harbaugh and Fangio were the coaches of the San Francisco 49ers when they went to the Super Bowl. That tandem right there, in my opinion, would get the Raiders into the playoffs because that's a good offensive coach, a good offensive mind with a good defensive coach. That's what the Raiders need, in my opinion. I would absolutely love that. Now, here's another thought that I have. If the Raiders make the playoffs, do they bring back Rich Bisaccia and potentially give Rich Bisaccia the job? I would say absolutely not. I think there's better coaches out there. I wouldn't be mad if the Raiders kept Rich Bisaccia with the one caveat, which is you cannot keep Greg Olsen as your offensive coach. You have to have a different offensive coordinator. You have to have an experienced offensive coordinator, a guy that really knows what he's doing, right? And again, I know Rich Bisaccia has done some terrible things in the past, but if we win these next 3 games, right? We won last week. We won this week. We have 2 games left. If we win the next 2, get in the playoffs, that's probably because Rich Bisaccia has, gotten better or he's improved a little bit, right? Either way, it'll be interesting what the Raiders do. Again, we're not in the playoffs yet. We still got to win out. Our last 2 opponents, the Broncos and Browns, much easier than the next 2. The next 2 are playoff teams. These are real playoff teams. The last 2 teams weren't playoff teams. Now, the Browns are a playoff team, but they were without their starting quarterback, without multiple players. So it's much different when you take on that Browns team versus the real Browns team, right? So that Browns team was not a playoff team. This Broncos team is clearly not a playoff team, especially with Drew Lock. They're so much better with Teddy Bridgewater. But yeah, next week, man, we got the Colts. They'll be without Darius Leonard because he caught COVID and he's unvaccinated, which means he can't play for 2 weeks. So not only will they be without Darius Leonard, which is big for the Raiders, especially with us potentially being able to run the football, I think they're also out Quentin Nelson, their starting left guard. So we'll see what happens, man. There's so much going for the Raiders right now, and I'm very, very excited. BP Lup said, I love Diablo. I hope he takes snaps from Littleton on rundowns whenever he gets back. You know what's crazy, BP? Is Corey Littleton doesn't play anymore. I'm not sure exactly what you see, but Corey Littleton is no longer a starter. Divine Diablo has already replaced him. Diablo is the Raiders' full-time starter. Corey Littleton is now a special teams player. He's probably the highest paid special teams player, him and Cleveland Barrel together. But Divine Diablo starts. And the thing is I love Divine Diablo. I think Divine Diablo is going to be really, really, really good. David said, with Renfro and Waller, all we need is one other weapon, and we can throw all over the field. They can't bracket both Waller and Renfro. It almost seems like once those guys get back, the Raiders should be able to take that next step. Now, I believe Darren Waller is going to be back next week. I have a strong feeling he will be back. And I almost feel like when he's there, we need Carr to continue to play the way he was playing today, right? Like he wasn't forcing anyone the football. He was kind of just throwing it to the guys that were getting open. Zay Jones had 8 targets, 6 catches for 50 yards. Hunter Renfrow was targeted only 3 times the entire game. He had 3 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Foster Moreau, 3 targets, 3 catches. Deshaun Jackson, 4 catches on 5 targets. We're being very, very, very conservative, but we're moving the football. And we really let the defense control things for the offense, and they really stepped up. I will also say this. Some people argued with me on social media recently saying that Hunter Renfrow is not a true number 1 guy. He's not a true guy that can line up out wide and make plays and beat guys and win. And I said that's not true. I said Hunter Renfrow plays the slot and he does a good job in the slot. But if Hunter Renfrow was moved to the outside, he would be equally as good. And he caught a touchdown pass playing the outside. Now, he didn't play the outside on every snap, but he did today on that play specifically, and he smoked the corner trying to cover him. Hunter Renfrow is a fantastic route runner, and I'm very glad he's a Raider. Hopefully we lock him up sooner than later. Adrian said Jacobs after halftime had something to prove. Totally agree, man. Josh Jacobs had 100 and I believe 102 yards to be exact in the second half. he averaged almost 5 yards per attempt. But in the second half, he averaged 7.5 yards per attempt. So think about that, right? The first half stats kind of skew his numbers negatively. In the second half, Josh Jacobs really did a great job. Thank you for the super chat. Cruise Control said, hopefully we can run the ball next week. We should use Peyton Barber more. Beat them at their game. They gel well. They gel well when the run is there. I believe the Indianapolis Colts had every single one of their offensive linemen out. Someone correct me on that. But this past week, this past game against Cardinals, every single one of their starting offensive linemen was out. If someone can confirm that, let me know. So don't quote me on that, but I believe that was the case, which is nuts to think. They had backups in on every single one of their positions. Jonathan Taylor still went for 100-plus yards. I believe he had a 50-yard carry on the first play of the game, or on the first drive of the game, or 43, something like that. He ended up with about 60 yards the rest of the game, which means the Raiders could do something very similar. Remember, the Browns game, they came in, and the thing is the Browns obviously is a little bit different. Their quarterback was a third-string guy. We'll be playing against Carson Wentz. This game's pivotal, and the Raiders' game plan has to be top tier. I talked about this a little bit earlier as well. Gus Bradley's defense really got vanilla after the first 3 to 4 weeks, up until I would say maybe last week. It got super vanilla. We were just running basic concepts. We weren't blitzing. We weren't doing a ton of things. And I asked the question, I said, is Gus Bradley holding back his defense? Because he looks at it like, in the second half, the last third of the season, the last 3-4 weeks, I will go ahead and at that point and start running these blitzes, running these packages, doing these different things. And I asked that question, and some of you guys agreed, some of you guys disagreed. But it seems like that's exactly what the Raiders did. It seems like Gus Bradley really held on to some of the things that he could have potentially done, and now he's doing those things, right? You look at some of the things that we're doing. We're blitzing way more. We're bringing the slot corner off the edge. We're doing more stunts with the defensive line, right? We got those D-tackle, D-end stunts going. We're doing so much more, and I almost feel like Gus Bradley's been doing a fantastic job, man. He's really coached this offense. This defense, and it's really helping the offense out, right? Cruz, I appreciate the super chat. I do agree with you though on the Peyton Barber. The Raiders' running back situation is very interesting. Peyton Barber is a pretty good running back, and we had Kenyon Drake. He's obviously out for the year, but Josh Jacobs proved that if you give him the ball and you open up some lanes, that he can do some things. It almost seemed like the Denver Broncos kind of were gassed coming into the second half. Even then, if you guys look at the time of possession, the Raiders held the ball for 37 minutes, and the Denver Broncos held the ball for 23 minutes. That's a big reason why the Las Vegas Raiders won, in my opinion. Jesse said, we win 2 games and we are in. I believe in this team. Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree with you more. The Raiders hold their own fate, man. It's our destiny. What Derek Carr wants, Derek Carr will get. What Colton Miller, Brandon Parker, Andre James want, they will get. What Rich Bisaccia wants, he will get. It's all up to these guys to just step up and get it done. I talked to some players this past week. A guy specifically that I talked to, I asked a couple of follow-up questions to him. And he told me that in the locker room, it's playoffs or basically go home. That's their mindset going forward. And that's what I want to see that's what I want to hear. And that's what I want to see on the field. That's what we saw from the defense, right? The defense really stepped up. And for the defense, it's basically, this is a playoff game for us today. Next week is a playoff game for us. And the week after is a playoff game. If we don't win these games, we're going home. And that's exactly what the Raiders did, basically, right? If you guys also think about this from another perspective, the Broncos had 13 points, but did they really have 13 points? I believe the Broncos really had 3 points, right? They had one drive that they were able to get downfield and score 3 points. Josh Jacobs' fumble allowed them to kick another field goal, right? They got the ball at the 40-yard line. They got to about the 32, and they kicked the field goal. And then you look at the next drive, Derek Carr's interception got them to the 1-yard line, and they punched it in for 1 yard. Really, the offense gave up 10 points. So you can argue that the defense only allowed 3 points this game, which is crazy because statistically speaking, this defense will never get the credit that they only allowed 3 points to this Denver Broncos team. All right, it's definitely something to think about. Mr. Nate Duncan said, crazy fun game. Can't afford a turnover against the Colts. They played better football than most of the teams we played. Merry Christmas, brother. Raiders. I really appreciate that, man. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everybody, and happy holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. Um, I'm excited, man, because this Colts team is going to be that true test. People are going to say, well, you look at the past 2 weeks and you're playing half-ass teams, backup quarterbacks, and although that's true, you look at the defense and what the defense was able to do. I will agree with you. We can't afford these turnovers. Derek Carr, if you're watching this video, you need to stop turning the ball over, especially against the Colts. If you turn the ball over and give them 10 free points, we're going to lose this game. In fact, we need the defense to force some turnovers. We don't have turnovers, and I don't know. I don't even know when the last turnover was that the Raiders had. If someone can tell me, let me know in the comments below. But the Raiders have to force some turnovers. You have to be able to play from ahead. Right, you can't play from behind. So that means Derek Carr can't throw an interception. Derek Carr can't fumble the ball. Josh Jacobs can't fumble the ball. Brian Parker can't get beat. We can't have these things happen. We have to play a perfect game. Today was very close to a perfect game, minus the turnovers. I would say that the turnovers were the only issues, and we could have lived with one turnover, right? We could have lived with the Josh Jacobs turnover. But the Derek Carr fumble, the fact that it wiped points off the board, the fact that the interception got them back to the 1 yard line, those we cannot live with. But yeah, man, I'm very, very excited. I appreciate the super chat. Ty Davis said, keep Carr with Renfro and Waller and get Adams. I don't know if we can make that happen. Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro are both want new contracts. Hunter Renfro is going to want $12 million. Waller's going to want $17 million. Adams is going to want $24 million or whatever the wide receiver money is. I don't think we can make it work, especially when you consider Max Crosby's coming up for a contract. Some of our other guys, right? We need a new right tackle. Brandon Parker's on his final year with the Raiders. I don't know if we can go out and get Devontae Adams. I will say this. I think Bryan Edwards needs to develop. And Bryan Edwards was drafted in the 3rd round. Bryan Edwards needs to become the Raiders' Devontae Adams. He needs to become that guy we can rely on. I know some people are already ready to give up on him. He's a second-year player. Let's just give the guy a couple more years, and let's see what we have in him. Zay Jones is in year 6, and Zay Jones has developed very nicely. He's been doing great things for the Raiders. And Zay Jones is, max ceiling, I would say, is way lower than Bryan Edwards, right? Bryan Edwards has a huge, huge, huge ceiling. Let's see if he can develop. Now, obviously, getting a guy like Devontae Adams would be nice, but let me give you an alternative approach. What if the Raiders went out and got themselves a great right tackle, whoever that may be, a guy that can run block well, pass block well? They went out and maybe Denzel Good moves to left guard, keep John Simpson as a backup, and then you go and spend money on a defensive tackle or a corner, and you make your defense a little bit better. I almost think that would be better for the Raiders than saying, let's go out and get Devontae Adams, right? Because I don't think a healthy Raiders offense is that bad of an offense. Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfro. If Bryan Edwards can develop a little bit more, then you have Bryan Edwards. You look at Kenyon Drake, who's going to be here next year. Peyton Barber's a pretty good 3rd-string running back, probably the best 3rd-string running back that's out there. And that doesn't include the fact that if you really wanted to, the Raiders can go draft an explosive running back in the draft. We can go out and in the 3rd round go get an explosive guy, right? I want you guys to think about this. The Denver Broncos just got Javonte Williams, who looks as to be a top 10 running back, right? Or at least he has that type of potential. Obviously, they need a new coaching staff, so it's going to get the best out of that young back. But Melvin Gordon is not going to be their back of the future. It'll be Javonte Williams, and he looks good. He's big. He's physical. And he's done some good things so far in his rookie year. But yeah, man, in terms of keeping Derek Carr, we'll see what the next year's coaching staff wants to do. But Derek Carr has to show up in these final 2 games, because if he doesn't, if Derek Carr shows up and you lose and you're at the playoffs, that's one thing. But if Derek Carr doesn't show up, right, because let's be honest, right, 17 points isn't good enough, right? Like, we played the Denver Broncos, we scored 17 points. That's not good enough still. Even then, you had 3 turnovers to the Raiders offense did, and 2 of those was the quarterback. That's still not good enough. If Derek Carr does that in the next 2 games, people are going to be saying, let's get rid of Derek Carr going into next year. Alternatively, Derek Carr's still under contract next year. So if Derek Carr plays well today, or today, the way he played today, the next 2 weeks, then maybe he sticks around, right? Obviously, it'll come down to which coaching staff wants to keep DC. 9-8 record, no playoff, successful season from Edgar. I don't think so. I think without the playoffs, there's no way this could be a successful season. I know some people will make the counter argument and they will say things like, well, you lose Henry Ruggs, you lose John Gruden. No one expected us to win 9 games. We're 5-2 at one point, right? So I would argue against that. From 5-2 to finish 9-8, I think is a terrible season, right? In my opinion, at least. You have to make the playoffs in order to have it be a successful season. 9-8 is technically a winning record, but is it really if you don't make the playoffs? Right? That's just my personal opinion. Jacobs finally stepped up. Hopefully, we can build on this. Running game late in the year / playoffs is huge. If we win the next 2, then we're in, right? Thank you, Farrell from the East. I always appreciate your comments. You always ask great comments. So huge shout out to you. Here's the thing, man. I couldn't agree with you more. Josh Jacobs has finally stepped up. And I don't even know if it's Josh Jacobs has stepped up more so than the offensive line has opened up huge lanes. In my opinion, the offensive line did a great job today. On one play, I saw Andre James put someone down, which we don't see. Andre James isn't a mauler. Andre James is a finesse zone blocking offensive lineman. On another play, I saw Alex Leatherwood put a guy down. Brandon Parker put a guy down. I was seeing the Raiders offensive linemen playing physical, playing tough, wanting to beat the Denver Broncos' ass. There was also a moment where John Simpson kind of got into it with one of the defensive linemen. And was that the turning point? Was it at that point that the Raiders offensive line said, we're going to go out here and whoop these guys' ass? Because at one point, something shifted. So I don't know what it was. Obviously, we'll find out. I'll ask some of the Raiders offensive linemen, see if I can get some insight on that. But it was very, very interesting, man. Very, very interesting. And I will also say this. For the Raiders, or for any team in general in the NFL, it doesn't matter how you start. You can be 0-4, you can be 2-8. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you finish the season, how you pick up as the season kind of ends. So for the Raiders right now, for the fact that we're 8-7 with 2 games left, and we can easily win these next 2 if we play the way we played today. More so than that, if you finish these 2 games off strong, the running game gets going, the offensive line gets going, Derek Carr plays the way he played today, minus those turnovers. If you can do that and the defense continues to play well, you make the playoffs. You don't know what could happen. Like at any point, any team can get hot, right? It really just takes that one moment. And I will even say this. If the Raiders make the playoffs this year, then going into next year, you have all the confidence in the world that this is a playoff team. We did it last year. We can do it this year. And there's no reason not to think that way. It only takes a specific game for a team to get hot. Happened with the Chiefs against the Raiders the first time they play them. 3-4 coming into that game. They haven't lost yet. I believe they're 11-4 at the moment. The Raiders win at the right time. We can win these next 2 games. Let me know what you think about that. Shout out to you for the super chat. Dante Dio said Jacobs first, Taylor next. 90% of Taylor is the O-line. I totally disagree with that, man. And I'm a huge Josh Jacobs fan, but Jonathan Taylor is a special running back. Jonathan Taylor is probably the second or third best running back in the league. Like, you can say that the best backs right now are Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. Those are probably the 4 best running backs. Now, I do agree that the offense line has a huge impact on the running back position, as is very evident with Saquon Barkley, right? He's struggling. But it's not him necessarily struggling. It's he's getting hit in the backfield. He's getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. And for the most part, it's the same thing happening with Josh Jacobs, right? It's not that Josh Jacobs is a terrible player or he sucks or he's this or he's that. What ends up happening is that Josh Jacobs is being hit in the backfield or there's no holes or there's no lanes, right? That's why when the offense line finally came together today, that's why Josh Jacobs had 126 yards or whatever he had. Right. That's why we saw those 7, 8, 9, 10-yard carries because the offense line was opening up gaps. They're opening up lanes. But I appreciate the super chat. I personally disagree with it. I know some people would agree with it. It all just kind of comes down to opinion. Phil from the East said, is Yannick hurt? He doesn't look explosive. #Kuntz. I don't know why the Raiders continue to inactivate Malcolm Kuntz. He was inactive today. I don't get it. Malcolm Kuntz has 2 sacks and about 15 snaps. How do you have that type of production and not play more? Like, there's no reason why Malcolm Kuntz should not play more than Cleveland Burrow. There's no reason why he shouldn't play more than Carl Nassib. You could make the argument based off of his production, he should be the second defensive end, and he should be playing more than Yannick Ngakoue. Now, from what I know, Ngakoue is hurt. I believe it's his back, or he's having some sort of issues with his back, or maybe his foot. I heard a little bit of both. I don't 100% know. Um, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but he does have some sort of injuries, either his foot, his leg, or his back. He doesn't look as explosive. Last week, it was clear he doesn't look as explosive, and even today, he kind of looks slow. He kind of looks, he just doesn't look the same. But it's okay because other guys kind of stepped up, right? The other defensive linemen, Max, Quinton Jefferson, Phylon, Solomon Thomas, these other guys kind of stepped up. Either way, Yannick, hopefully he gets healthy, and hopefully, he comes back for us, and he steps up when most needed. John Salinas, thank you for the super chat. Said, my fears are coming true. A good defense is letting Carr off the hook from his mistakes. We are biting because it's a win. We cannot sustain this. I totally agree with you. I'm not going to let Derek Carr off the hook. We can kind of talk about it a little bit. You know, let's be honest. Derek Carr kind of lost us this game, and then the defense won us this game, right? And what that means is the defense allowed 3 points today, and Derek Carr had a fumble, which would have led us to at least 3 points, or we lost 3 points. And then he also had an interception that gave the Broncos 7 points, because that interception could have been a pick six. It might as well have been a pick six, because the Broncos got all the way down to the 1 yard line and then they punched it in. Those type of issues are killer. Those are game-changing issues. And I'm not saying that Derek Carr gets a free pass, but you can also make the argument that, our defense has to do their job. And I know today's game, Derek Carr ended up getting it done. The defense really got it done, and we are able to kind of come together with the team win. But Derek Carr did have mistakes today. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to tell you guys right now, at the end of the season, depending on how the season goes, I will have a full breakdown of Derek Carr, and I will break down every pivotal moment of the season. There was a point in the Giants game, just on the top of my head. There was a point in the Giants game where the Raiders were down by 8 points, and Derek Carr had the ball, and he throws an interception. We don't go downfield and score. We throw an interception. There was a moment in the Washington football team game, same thing, right? We're down by 2. Instead of throwing it a hunter run for wide open, Derek Carr throws it deep, wastes 20 seconds or 10 seconds. All right, there's moments throughout this season that I can point to and pick to, and I will make a full video of those moments. Because I think even like a game today or a game like last week, the Browns game, we lost. We lost that game because Derek Carr threw an interception. But it was the defense that came back and won us that game. As the same thing today, the defense won us this game. Like, let's not get it confused. Derek Carr did not win us today or last week's games. It was the defense that won us these past 2 games. And I know people can say, well, Derek Carr drove you downfield and got you in field goal range. Although that is true, he also threw an interception that lost us the game. The defense at that point could have just given up a first down, and it would have been game over. But they didn't. They got the stop, right? And let's be honest. Most quarterbacks, if they have 2 opportunities to get into field goal range, not most, but most top 15 quarterbacks will get into field goal range. Like, field goal range isn't that difficult. It's like 40 yards and you're in field goal range. So it's not like that's super difficult. Multiple quarterbacks would have done the same thing. But at the same time, you look at what the defense did. A lot of defenses wouldn't have done what our defense did last week, right? You look at the Broncos, they needed the ball back. They had 3.5 minutes left to get the ball back, and they didn't. The offense ran the clock out, right? And those type of things happen, in my opinion. I appreciate the super chat, though, man. I really do. I know some people are going to, discuss the Raiders need to move on from Derek Carr. Derek Carr is not a good quarterback. He did have some mistakes. He did have some mistakes, especially some learning things from this game. And we'll see how the season finishes out, right? Like, I'm personally not going to give him a pass for his performance today in terms of those turnovers. But in fairness, Derek Carr also made a couple of really big plays. That just on the top of my head, 2 plays. One went for 15 yards to Hunter Renfrow. I think it was like 2nd and 6, 15 yards. You're already in field goal range just based off those 15 yards, right? That's like a 1/6 of the yards, or not even. That's like a 1/4 of the yards you need to get into field goal range. The final play of the Raiders' offensive possession before the knees, Derek Carr plays actions, throws it to Foster Moreau. Although I will say it's a good play call, Derek Carr still delivered the pass, and he had some pressure in his face as well. So thank you for the super chat. Bureau from the East says Carr's next two games need to be his best. #win. Absolutely. That's the thing. Derek Carr has to play lights out. If Derek Carr does not play lights out, the Raiders are not going to get into the playoffs because we're not about to play the Broncos with the backup quarterback or the Browns with the third string quarterback or the Washington football team with the backup quarterback, right? Those teams didn't score more than 20 points. Those teams averaged like 15 points a game. That's not this team. The Colts just put up, I believe, 20 plus points today, or maybe they put up 30 plus points. I'm not sure on the top of my head. They put up a lot of points today. And I believe that was with all backup offensive linemen. I'm sure they're going to get some guys back this upcoming week. So the next 2 weeks will not be the past, not even 2 weeks, the past 7 games. We're still averaging 15 points a game. That's not acceptable. So Derek Carr, let's get that Derek Carr we saw against the Denver Broncos the first time, the Eagles, even the Dallas Cowboys, right? That Derek Carr put up 35 plus points. Let's see if we can get that guy these final 2 games. Daniel Beltran says DC has no swag. He absolutely has no swag. Totally agree. No issues with that. Some quarterbacks don't have it. Some quarterbacks do. Not a huge issue in my opinion. No more halftime Twitter spaces. Really like that. Adrian, I really appreciate that. Here's the thing, man. I really wanted to do one today, and I promise you, throughout this week or throughout the next couple of weeks, I will come up with some sort of schedule where I will do the Twitter spaces. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically going live on Twitter and kind of talking through your phone and having some of you fans kind of interact and give your guys' input. I promise you guys that I will do that. I plan to do it today. It was kind of busy. I had about 4 or 5 people over at the house kind of, watching the game. So I didn't really want to do it because there was people here. But I promise that next week I will absolutely do it during the game. Thank you for that. I appreciate that comment. Because of that, I will absolutely do it. I really appreciate that. Lorenzo Soto left this next super chat. He said, hire Harbaugh. He can take Carr to the next level. In Alex Smith's TED Talk, he shared that Harbaugh saved his career. First round bust to comeback player of the year candidate. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Here's the thing, right? Some people would argue against what you said, right? You're saying Derek Carr or Harbaugh could potentially take Carr's game to the next level. Some people would argue that Harbaugh is better with that mobile quarterback, the guys that can kind of move around. As he, took Colin Kaepernick and had tremendous success with Colin Kaepernick. Even Alex Smith was more mobile, in my opinion, than Derek Carr, right? He did things differently than Derek Carr. Could he take Derek Carr's game to the next level? Potentially. And maybe Harbaugh would keep DC around. But I don't think Harbaugh leaves Michigan. And I really hope people stop having that false hope that John Harbaugh, I believe it is. I hope people stop having that false hope that he's going to leave Michigan and come to the Raiders. Why would he leave something he's built for the last 4 years and it's finally clicking? He's in the college playoffs. Why would he get rid of that and come to the Raiders where he has to rebuild basically, right? Reconstruct the team. It doesn't make sense, right? It's not like the money's going to be different. Really, all that would happen is people would say, "Oh, he failed at Michigan, and now he went to the Raiders," right? So again, I don't see him leaving that too. He left college the first time for the NFL, and then once he was no longer with the Niners, he didn't go to another NFL team. He went back to college, right? So it's something to kind of think about. I do appreciate the super chat though. Cruise Control said Foster Moreau balled out too, clutch play to win the game. Absolutely. He didn't have drops. And tell me if you guys feel like this, man. Every single time Derek Carr throws the ball to Foster Moreau, in my head, I always think, oh, this is about to be a drop pass until I know he for sure has it secured. And then I kind of have that sense of relief. I don't know if you guys feel that same way, but I definitely kind of feel that, man. I appreciate the super chat. He did have the clutch play. Derek Carr, nice pass. Foster Moreau caught it. And the Raiders were able to take a knee, man. So great job. Tripp said, who was playing strong safety? Was it Gillespie? Also, what do you think about Diablo seeming to have a bad game? Here's the thing. I've seen this comment, so we'll kind of address it a little bit. Divine Diablo did not necessarily have a bad game, right? I know there was one play that Diablo kind of turned to his right, and the guy kind of crossed and ran right by him. And then the broadcast guy kind of said, oh, Diablo this or whatever. Divine Diablo did not have a bad game. You look at the statistics against the run, Divine Diablo is a big part of that. The reason why the Charger or the Broncos averaged 1.1 yards per 10 is because Divine Diablo was one of the 6 or 7 guys that had the impact on that. In terms of who played strong safety, I believe it was Tyree Gillespie. I believe he was the guy that played strong safety for the Raiders. I'll have to go back and confirm that. For sure, it was him playing strong safety. I also believe that when they went with their base packages, they kept Keyshawn Nixon in, and he kind of played that strong safety role, although he was kind of like a nickel corner. I'll have to confirm that 100%. But I saw a lot of Tyree Gillespie playing that position, so I do appreciate the super chat. And I'm a big believer in Divine Diablo. For those of you guys that don't know, I think Diablo is going to be the guy for the Raiders. Farrell from the East said, to be honest, Chargers and Colts are better teams. Absolutely. There's no question about that. The Chargers and the Colts, they're playoff teams, right? Like, let's be honest. Justin Herbert is a great quarterback. Carson Wentz is a really good quarterback. I would argue the Colts have a better roster than the Chargers, but I believe the Chargers have the better quarterback. Either way, it's going to be hard for the Raiders. We don't play no slouch teams. These are good football squads. Rick Glenn said, how big is the Colts game for us? By the way, I would pass on Harbaugh, just my honest opinion. I wouldn't pass on Harbaugh, but I don't think Harbaugh would come here. Only for the reason that if it's not Harbaugh, who else do you get? Rich Bisaccia or Gus Bradley? Like, who are your other options, right? So for that reason, I would not pass on Harbaugh. But how big is the Colts game for us? I don't think Derek Carr's had a bigger game in his career than this Colts game. Not only for the sole purpose that playoffs or out of the playoffs, not only for that specific reason, but for the fact that if you guys think about it, Derek Carr, if he doesn't win this game, if he struggles, his entire career may shift. The trajectory of it will shift. It's already kind of, it's kind of rocky already. Like, let's be honest. Half the fan base doesn't want Derek. I say 40% of the fan base doesn't want Derek. The other 60% wants him. But it's more so than that, right? Do other teams want him? Do other coaches want him? We don't know, right? And if he really sucks it up in these clutch games, in these cold weather games, if Derek Carr sucks it up in these games, maybe another team doesn't give him that opportunity. And what if he doesn't get another shot, right? Or what if he's now has to go into next season as a backup? Like, it's possible that could happen, right? We don't know for sure if Derek Carr is the guy for another team. If you guys think about it, there's probably 5 teams that really need a quarterback because every other team either has a quarterback, they've invested in a quarterback, or they're going to draft a quarterback with the high pick, right? Which means there's about 5 teams that could potentially take Derek Carr. And we don't know if Derek Carr is the guy they want. Like, why would they not target Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson? Davis Mills, the backup quarterback of the Houston Texans, looked good. Tyler Huntley, the backup quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens, looked good last week. Why are we so certain that Derek Carr is the answer over all of those guys or over those guys, right? Like, we don't know what GMs are thinking, right? That's just my personal opinion. So for me, this is the biggest game of Derek Carr's career, right? It can change the narrative of Derek Carr. It will change my opinion of Derek Carr as well. Because I do think that Derek Carr, with a good defense, a good set of receivers, an offense line, I believe Derek Carr could get it done. I just don't know if the Raiders can build that with his salary cap that we're going to have to pay him in 2 years, right? So that's the only reason why I'm kind of hesitant with Derek Carr. Thank you for the super chat. Casey said, for your information, 49ers had a top 5 offensive line, top run game with Frank Gore. That's a great point. Absolutely great point. And I don't know if that was, the only reason. And I'm not sure exactly what you mean. If you're saying like that's the only reason Colin Kaepernick had success or Alex Smith had success or whatever. But you can also argue that Harbaugh is just a good coordinator, right? And he was able to kind of draw some of these things up. Either way, I appreciate the super chat. Pacey and Cunningham said, I don't put that interception on Carr. Just a great play by Chubb. Other than the fumble, DC looked good throwing the ball today. Fumbles in. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I don't put the interception on Carr. I do think that Bradley Chubb made a fantastic play. Most defense ends don't make that play 99.9% of the time. And I will say that the fumble was on Derek Carr. Some people can also say it's on Brandon Parker for not picking up that stunt. But, at the same time, if you're going to get sacked, you got to hold on to the ball, right? You have to have the ability to grip that ball and hold it tightly. It's not a fake narrative. It's not fake news. It's not fake to say that Derek Carr, every other time he gets sacked, is fumbling the ball, or there's a good chance he's going to fumble the ball. You guys can look at the statistics for the season. Look at the amount of times he was sacked, and look at the amount of times he fumbled the ball. I'm not talking about the fumbles lost only. I'm talking about fumbles in general. I believe in total, Derek probably has 13, 14 fumbles this year. Then there might be 2 or 3 fumbles on the center as well, but he has a lot of fumbles, right? It's just that not all of them have been lost, all right? Either way, I would say that Derek Carr had a pretty good game. This is the type of game that Derek Carr could have if the defense plays good, the O-line plays good, and the running back plays good. Because I don't think having great wide receivers with great weapons makes a difference if your defense plays good and your run game O-line played good, right? That's just my personal opinion, and I think this kind of proved that narrative, right? Two Clutch Pop TV said, "How was that interception DC's fault? Chubb made a great play, plus Parker got blown up on the fumble. Garnett, he needs to hold on better, but let's not act he's playing bad." You can, some people are going to go against it. Some people will say, well, we only scored 17 points. The Colts are going to put up 30 points about on us, which is probably true, right? The Colts will probably put up close to 30 points on us. So Derek Carr has to figure it out. Absolutely has to figure it out. And I think we will, man. And I appreciate the super chat. I really do. Tripp said the CBS Raiders to interview Todd Bowles for head coach. Thoughts? I don't know how I really feel about that. I saw that a little bit earlier. I just don't know how I really feel about that, right? Like, is Todd Bowles the type? Is he the type of coach that you would want? I don't know. I really don't know, because I don't think he would keep Gus Bradley around. But maybe he does, right? So I don't really know, but I will say this: whoever the Raiders choose as their next coach, they have to hit with their coach. Especially if you think Derek Carr is the guy, because our team's not that bad. We don't need to rebuild the entire team. All we have to do is just retool the team, retool it, get some better players on the offensive side, some defensive linemen, some corners, and you're right there, man. You're right there in the playoffs. And then whoever the next coach is, he can make that decision on Derek Carr. All right. It'll all come down to that coach, but you have to get the coach correct. It's so pivotal. And it's really going to impact the next 4 years, not just the Raiders, but basically of all of our lives, right? If you guys really think about it, like, are we going to have more stress or less stress, right? And happiness and all that good stuff, right? Because the Raiders are winning. So thank you for the super chat. If the Raiders can't get Rodgers or Wilson, I say stick with Carr for at least the remainder of his contract. I don't disagree with that, Tito. Honestly, I don't disagree with that at all. I think I really think that for the Raiders, even if you're going to move on from Derek Carr, you have to have that plan in place, right? Like, you're not going to move on from Derek Carr and say, "Oh yeah, let's just go forward with Nathan Peterman, or let's go get Matt McGloin." Right? You're not going to do those type of things. You need to have a solid plan. Even if you say we're going to move on from Derek Carr and we're going to roll forward with Marcus Mariota, even then, right? Like, let's say going into next season, the Raiders they re-sign Marcus maybe 1 year. Even then, let's say that they keep Marcus next year, they keep Derek, and their goal is that, hey, we're going to, at this point, let it be an open competition, and we're going to 100% let the best man win. If they rolled forward with that plan, as opposed to saying Derek Carr is the quarterback, I'd be perfectly fine with that as well. Like, I would not have issues with that. But you have to have a plan. You can't just say we're going to move on from Derek Carr without having a plan. Thank you for the super chat. Farrell from the East said, I get it. Some people don't trust Carr, and he needs to step up, but so does the offense, the defense, the coaching staff. The next two games are against better teams overall, hands down, team game. I totally agree, man. That's a good point. If you guys look at today's game, it was a team effort. Like, and you can make the argument, which I kind of agree with, that Derek Carr could have played better. Turnovers are costly, right? It's different if you miss a guy open on a 3rd and 5 and you punt the ball. That's a mistake. That's not too costly. But a turnover is completely different. A turnover is a momentum shift. A turnover is way more than just a missed guy or a dropped pass, right? Those things don't really matter. They don't impact the game as much. A turnover impacts the game a lot, because not only do they get the ball at that exact spot, you're not able to punt it 30, 40, 50 yards. They're going to get the ball with momentum, and those type of things make a huge difference. Now, if Derek Carr got rid of those turnovers today, we just punted the football from exactly where those turnovers happened, it's a completely different game for the Raiders. But I do think what Derek Carr showed today, especially after those turnovers, the way he was able to control the game at the line of scrimmage, the way the offense line said, let us handle this, DC, just give the ball to Josh. I loved it, man. I really, really loved it. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate every single one of you guys that have been here. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button right now, I would really appreciate it. I look forward to breaking down the tape. I'm going to be doing a couple of film studies for you guys this week. We'll take a look at Derek Carr. The offensive line, I think, played a huge role. So we're going to look at the offensive line. And I want to kind of do some things on the defense side of the ball as well, especially Yannick Ngakoue. I think he's kind of having a slow end of the year, at least so far. So if you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe if you guys are not subscribed. Tune in throughout this week. Raiders content pretty much every day. And I will see you guys next time with another video.